Lorcan stood in the open night air, eyes closed, feeling the cool wind as it spilled over the hills and through the glen, as it bled through his shirt and set his skin trembling. In the darkness, here beyond the parish border, he felt different, like some kind of wild creature, something from the tales that mothers tell their children to keep them safe and scared. He saw himself in his mind, a black silhouette standing atop a hill, outlined in silver moonlight. It didn't matter what his face looked like beneath the scarves wrapped around his head. Didn't matter that his imperfect goat-like eyes stared out from a slit in the fabric. No one was here to call him devil. No one was here to turn him away. For the first time he could remember, he felt like he could belong in this world. He looked once more at the tin jug in his hands. The symbols etched into it were crude and difficult to discern. What may have been a cottage, a hill with a stone atop it, a deep bowl, and a tall tree on the other side, all connected with arrows. But Lorcan thought he knew what they meant. They were familiar to him, an artifact of his childhood, part of some half-remembered game he used to play with who? He couldn't recall any other children that he might have played with, but there had been someone. They'd left clues like this scrawled in the dirt, or written with charcoal on the flagstones of the cottage, and Lorcan had followed them. The world had seemed so much wider back then, so much more worth exploring. But years had passed, and though he was still little more than a child, he had convinced himself that those memories were only a figment of his imagination, the dreams of a lonely boy. His life had since come to revolve around the cottage, the field, and the church house. As the parish priest often said, "Work hard, work honestly, and the grace of God shall do the rest." And so Lorcan had done. For years he had worked in the field, always trying to ignore the heat beneath the scarves around his head. For years he had attended Sunday Mass, always trying to ignore the glares of the congregation. And for years he'd honored his parents, always trying to ignore the memories of how hard they'd tried to fix him. The memory of his father, bending him over a basin, sawing through his horns as he sobbed and bled and screamed his inhuman screams. The memory of his mother, shaving away his black goat's mane, and the smell of burning flesh as she singed his skin to prevent it from ever growing back. He didn't resent them for it. They could have done away with him when he was an infant. No one would have held it against them. Lorcan was, he knew, a monster. The goat child of the parish. The spawn of the adversary, as the priest had occasion to call him. And yet, for some reason, they chose to raise him. For this, if nothing else, he was grateful. But some part of him had always held on to those childhood dreams, longing for a time when he was whole and happy and welcome in this world. He traced his fingers along the lines etched into the jug, the cottage, his home, the stone on the hilltop. He glanced down at the collapsed dolmen stone he was standing atop, a place he'd been many times before as a small child. The bowl. He looked out over the glen before him, a ways to walk. The tree. His eyes moved along the tree line beyond the glen, and there, in the moonlight, he found the silhouette of a single oak looming above the rest. He hopped down from the dolmen stone and began into the glen. By the time Lorcan reached the woods, the sky was purpling into dawn. The arches of his feet stung, his scarves were dripping with sweat, and the strange animal confidence he'd felt while standing on the hill above the glen had shriveled away, leaving behind a sort of urgency, a voice telling him that soon his parents would wake up to start the day's work. And what would they do when they found him gone? Would they look for him? Would they be relieved? If he returned, would they even take him back? If he returned. The thought felt strange in his head. Where was he hoping for this to go? He didn't even know who he was meeting. He just had some vague notion of childhood happiness, and when the jug had shown up beside his bed this morning, he'd taken it as an omen and stolen out into the night. Exhausted, anxious, and now wondering whether this adventure was worth throwing his life away for, Lorcan meandered through the forest, searching now and then for openings in the canopy to make sure he was still moving toward the tree. Eventually, he came to a place where the trees thinned out into a small clearing. As if put there by design, the oak stood at the center, ancient gray trunk shooting out of the earth like a stone column. "Bless me, look who it is," said a small voice from somewhere inside the clearing. Lorcan paused in the forest, searching for the source.
Don't be shy now. We're not strangers, you and I. Come now, lad. Out of the forest. Let me have a look at you.
Cautiously, Lorcan edged out past the tree line. His heart was pounding in his chest. He couldn't seem to form coherent thoughts, and he could feel his tongue drying out in his mouth. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a nonsensical voice screamed at him for forgetting to bring water.
Oh, now look at you. Look how you grown.
There was a rustling in the branches of the great tree. Lorcan looked up and saw something. He squinted, but couldn't make it out. A shadow? Not quite. There was more to it than that. The leaves moved around it as it came down into the lower boughs.
But I, the voice continued, still the same old boy. Was worried you wouldn't find me all the way out here, but you always were quite good at this game. Never could fool you.
The voice was so familiar, but Lorcan couldn't tell what he was looking at. What? He stuttered. Or, who? Who are you? The voice said nothing for a moment, and the figure stilled in the branches. When it began again, it sounded quiet, sad.
Did they truly break you that bad, that you don't even remember me?
I remember this? Lorcan held up the jug, pointing at the etchings on the front.
Aye, and that's something, to be sure. But you don't remember my name, and you don't remember my face, do you?
Lorcan shook his head, slowly. Sorry, but I don't even think I can see your face. The shadow figure seemed to ponder this for a moment, slumping backward against the trunk of the tree.
I see. Well now, tell me this. Did you bring everything I left for you?
Lorcan reached into the jug and removed 2 black, twisting goat horns. His horns. They were in the jug this morning when he'd first found it, and they were, perhaps, responsible for his decision to come out tonight. At the very least, he'd wanted to know why someone would save them for so long.
Ah, good lad, good lad. Now, you may not much care for this, but since you're here, we ought to have a real talk. Why don't you take off that mask?
Lorcan hesitated. He couldn't remember the last time he'd been outside without something to hide him from the world. I'd rather not, he said, trying not to show the shame that he felt.
Didn't think as much, but you know, have you looked around? Who's here to see? The trees?
The voice chuckled softly.
Don't be afeard, lad. Might be nice to feel the breeze on your face.
Lorcan let out a long breath through his nose and began to unwind the fabric from his head. He'd once seen his own reflection in one of the cottage windows, pink, silver-lined tissue circling his head and neck where his mane had once been, the cracked, splintering stumps of his horns, the eyes of a goat. Sometimes he thought he was more monstrous this way than he'd been before they fixed him. He usually tried to push the thought away, but here, with no one but the trees and this small shadow in the branches to compare himself to, it felt like the truth. There was a long moment of silence in the clearing. Lorcan was about to open his mouth, about to ask whether the creature was too disgusted to say anything. But he heard something in the silence. The creature was making an odd, breathy sound. Laughter? Lorcan frowned. No. The shadow creature was weeping and trying not to let Lorcan hear it. Are you okay? The voice seemed to collect itself.
Bless me, it said weakly. Am I okay, he says. Of course I am. Of course. But lad, are you?
The shadow creature dropped out of the tree onto the grass below. It was so small. In the dim light, Lorcan could just make out the vague shape of it. A tiny person.
Look what they done to you. Oh, I was there when they done it, but it's been so long. I forgot how they broke you, how they stole you away from me.
The shadow began to move toward Lorcan, still unsure what he was looking at, whether this was, in fact, his childhood friend. Lorcan took a reflexive step backward. The shadow paused.
Ah, right. Suppose I don't look like much of anything to you now, do I? But that's why I saved your horns. Your mum threw 'em down the well, and I went down after 'em, I did. Been keeping 'em safe for you ever since. Thought someday maybe you'd like to know what those people stole from you. Go on now. Put 'em back where they belong.
Lorcan looked down at the horns, then back at the shadow. What do you mean?
Why, I mean for you to put them back on your head, just the way they used to be.
Lorcan stared at the horns in his hand, unsure how exactly he was supposed to do what the creature was asking. They're broken. They'll just fall off.
Aye, that they are, But for now, just hold him there with your hands. I need you to see the way you did when you were but a babe, before they cut you down and tried to make you like them." Still confused, Lorcan dropped the empty jug on the ground and, slowly, raised the horns to the stumps on his head. As they made contact, something electric seemed to shoot through his body. He shivered. The air felt warmer, and the shadow figure seemed to focus into a coherent, solid figure. He twisted the horns until they found purchase and slid with a dull clack into the jagged teeth of their broken stumps. The world changed around him. The purple sky intensified into a radiant violet. Ribbons of golden dawnlight cut through the foliage of the surrounding trees, casting patches of light onto the floor of the clearing. The grass, the leaves, the bark of the trees all seemed somehow more real to Lorcan, more alive. No wind was blowing, and yet the world seemed to sway, to shudder and breathe with a will of its own. And there, beside the great tree, stood a tiny naked man with brown hair that bristled like bushes from his brow and chin. Tears pricked at Lorcan's eyes. It felt like he'd been blindfolded for years, and now that he could finally see, the world was brighter, more vibrant than he could handle. His legs gave out beneath him, and he collapsed onto his knees, tears streaming in hot lines down his cheeks. "How's it feel, lad?" said the little man, approaching Lorcan. He put one of his rough, knotted hands on Lorcan's arm. "Good to be back." Lorcan tried to answer, but his voice caught in his throat, and he began to sob instead. He doubled over, clenching his horns in his hands, pulling them down against his head to brace himself against the convulsions of his own body. This warm, clear air, the living, breathing world, and this little man, the only friend he'd ever had. These were the things he could never recall, the life he'd lost. He wept, for all he'd forgotten, for all the years he'd wasted in the parish. He wept. When he felt he could speak, he met the creature's eyes. They were kind and tired and lined with the wisdom of a dozen lifetimes, and Lorcan knew them. "Robin," he said shakily. The little man's eyes widened, and now he also seemed to be on the brink of tears. "Aye," he said, climbing onto Lorcan's knee and reaching to touch his face. "Your old friend, Robin." Lorcan didn't stop him. He sat with his head stooped, holding his horns in place, while Robin Goodfellow ran his ancient fingers over Lorcan's scarred neck and cheeks. "'Twas a cruel thing they did to you. Such cruelty I've hardly seen in all my many years." "Why," Lorcan whispered, "why did you let them? Why didn't you take me away with you, Robin?" The little man sighed and let his hands fall to his sides. "I can only do so much, me boy. That land belongs to the children of Adam, and my kind, your kind, aren't welcome. 'Twas hard enough to see you as often I did, but to steal you away," Robin shook his head, "couldn't be done, not without terrible consequences." "Terrible?" Lorcan said, more severely than he meant to. "More terrible than what happened to me?" "I'm sorry to say it, but aye, these are rules older than you or me, older than the oldest parish in all of Erin. We don't take 'em lightly. When those old Femoris stole that babe and left you in its place, you might have been as good as gone." Robin gave Lorcan a sort of somber smile and tapped the side of his nose. "But you see, I was there. Old Robin was watching." Lorcan frowned, trying to piece together what Robin was telling him. "Do you mean I was left there? I'm not my mother's child?" Robin looked surprised. "Oh, bless me, of course not. You've got horns, lad," he said, gesturing toward Lorcan's head. "Or, well, you had them. But no, you're no son of Adam. By my reckoning, you belong to an old line of Fomorian blood, the children of Indech Macdedomnin. Foul old beasts, greedy, like to swap out their kin for the children of man, raise themselves some slaves." Lorcan tried to create the scene in his head. A creature, black-maned and goat-horned, creeping into the cottage in the night, baby Lorcan in its arms. He imagined it looming over a sleeping infant. He imagined his parents in the morning when they found that their baby had changed. Despite himself, despite the tears still wet on his cheeks, the fresh knowledge that he'd been abandoned before he was old enough even to know it, Lorcan began to laugh. The sound forced its way out of him, shaking his small frame. It felt as if his body was expelling something, a sickness that had festered in his soul for years and years.
He was no monster, no devil. He was only a child left with the wrong parents. After a small while, once the tears had started again and stopped, when all that was left of the laughter was a sick dryness at the back of Lorcan's throat, he smiled wanly at Robin. I'm not a mistake, then?
Of course not. You never were.
The little man sighed, ran his fingers through his beard.
Those folks back in the parish, they didn't know any better. Bless me, but that's just the nature of man, isn't it? They see something they don't know, and they could never want another thing more than to make it their own.
He shook his head, and for a moment he looked very old and tired, fragile. Lorcan wanted to reach out and cradle him in his hands, but he sat still.
Soon enough there won't be a thing left for us in this world. It will be parishes and church houses and iron-ploughed fields as far as the eye can see. Suppose that's why so many of us have gone under the hills and mountains. But, he said, turning his face up to look at Lorcan, still a couple of lifetimes before then. We ought to enjoy it. What do you say?
Lorcan had never been outside the parish until now. The prospect of living out here with Robin loomed large in his mind, both exciting and terrifying. Where will we go? He said, after a moment of thought. Robin grinned, tapped the side of his nose.
Now don't you worry. There's a place for us yet, and there's folk would like to meet you. Dozens of them, to be sure. Might even know someone can heal you.
Lorcan stared at Robin, eyes wide. He saw himself in his mind, the goat child of the parish, surrounded by creatures like Robin, like himself. It didn't matter that he had a full black mane circling his face. Didn't matter that he had the eyes of a goat and horns curling out of his forehead. No one here would call him devil. No one would turn him away. For the first time in his life, he thought there could be a place for him in this world. He stood up in the clearing, still holding his horns in place. Show me, he said, and they left the forest, the parish, behind. Hi, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed our first Tale Foundry original short story, bad Irish accents and all. Now, it may not feel like it on the surface, but this story is really based on Celtic folklore, which was the channel's theme for this March. If you want to see where we got our inspiration and maybe use it to make something of your own, you can check out the other videos we posted this month. Maybe see if you can piece together what parts of those videos we used here. And hey, stick around. We'll be doing a new theme every month. With the new season of Game of Thrones starting, April is going to be dedicated to dissecting the world building in that series, so be sure to click subscribe so you don't miss it. You can also click submit if you have a story you want us to share. Anyway, thanks for watching, and keep making stuff up. I'll see you next month.